Hello everyone, this is Art with Alexander, tripping over my own tongue already, and it's been about 8 months since I did anything, but I have done quite a bit with this Lokta paper book that I bought at the beginning of the year. And it's not done, not even close, but I did figure out what I was going to do with it. If anybody remembers, and I'll see if I can figure out how to put links on this thing so that you can go back and look yourself. But at the beginning of the year, I got this little lightweight notebook, mostly out of curiosity. The wings weren't painted like this. I just was playing with white pins at the time, and I thought, ooh, this would be an interesting use for it. But after a little bit of experimentation and a lot of thought, I finally figured out my best use for this particular book and paper. And I say my because somebody else has probably got different ideas. Out of curiosity, I had gone online and found out more about this paper. It's been around for a long time, and at some point was actually used for things like Nepalese governmental documents. And let's see, what do they got here? About 1,000 to 1,900-year-old paper that they had in a script that I'm not gonna try to pronounce, but it was block printed on this paper. So long lasting. Sorry about that. Just like 8 months ago, I seem to be having sinus issues again. Seems to be a chronic thing. Anyway, the paper turned out to be very interesting. I mentioned it was lightweight and soft last time, and I wasn't sure how it was going to hold up to water. Well, I will tell you how it holds up to water. It holds up to water like a sponge. And yeah, I put this on here because, as you can see, my book is a little thicker than it started 8 months ago. It happens when you apply a lot of water to pages. I will probably have to put this in a book press when I'm done so that I can flatten this thing back out again. But it holds water like a sponge. I did a little testing page first because I wanted to know what it would do with different things, and I found out right away that it is a sponge. I used so much paint to make that little inch-by-inch square, and once the paint got there, it bleeds a little bit, but if there's metallic elements to your paint, the moment it touches the page, that's done. You are not moving those metallic elements, so scratch that, no metallic paints. I also just made a wet square of water and just dropped another metallic paint onto it, confirming that the sparkly bit doesn't go anywhere, except apparently on my finger a little bit. And the paint just feathers off and bleeds. I marked that as a fail. And 50-50 was okay. This was marker, and it feathered, so it wasn't real great for markers in the way I would use them. Worked great with pencil. Pencil was fine. The charcoal I used did kind of a messy effect because of all the little fibers in it. So you could use it on there, just not going to have real consistent effects. Pen, ballpoint pen, worked great. Pencil, not bad. A little bit like trying to draw on a paper napkin at the Huddle House or Waffle House, whichever you prefer. The felt tip pen, Micron, perfect. Regular brush tip, great. And boy, does it just soak up water. So I marked off on that and made a note to myself, color soak page, ink draw on top. So that's what I did. I started off, I had a whole bunch of cheap paints, things I had gotten from Amazon, Walmart, when I first started coloring, and very soon I started buying better paints as I could. Some of my earliest ones, I made these mixing palettes basically to test how to mix colors. And I thought it was a lot more effective, at least for me, to take those extremely cheap colors and mix them from the tubes in little palettes like this, so that I could see and have a good sample of what it would do. Yes, hello, Binky, you're being nosy. So that's what I started with, and I started soaking, don't you spill that, soaking pages with the paint. And I said, okay, well, this looks pretty cool. Sure, it takes a lot of paint, but hey, this is paint that I'm not going to be using for my regular art anymore. So why not use it up on projects like this? So then I bought white pens, which was another new thing for me. I had bought a couple of different brands of pens, and sure enough, everyone's reported favorite, the Jelly Roll, seemed to have done the best. I had kind of hoped that the G60 or whatever it was called, my favorite writing pen, would be great, but the first one I got just flat didn't work. I don't know. I can see that it's full of ink. It's not going anywhere. But once I had put the paint on here, this surface almost solidified. It's still fairly soft. I could take my fingernail here and do this and see where I marked it a little bit with my fingernail, just a little dent. But boy, this became a great surface for just drawing in. And as you can see, I started experimenting with dyeing the page with the paint. It seemed like the best way to refer to this, just trying out different dyes and doing different drawings. I add a little bit of black to this one just to play with it. And I did several little things in different colors and different experiments. And then I bought some metallic pens, and I really liked the way that looked. And so I just kept on experimenting. And finally, I decided that this was how I was going to use this particular book. Maybe not a great drawing, but it's still interesting. It's still playing with the paper, still kind of learning it. So after a little while of playing with these papers and having fun things like two papers that got painted at the same time, creating a kind of mottled effect on the paper I didn't realize was under there, I said, you know what? Hold the presses. Let's just go ahead and color all these pages. And then I will go back and do some more drawing in the pages. Now, why not? We've got this here, and before we get the book wet, I'm just going to give you a quick look at what I've got so far, because I've been collecting pens. I've gotten quite a little collection of them now, a couple of different silver pens, a lot of sparkly pens, Jelly Rolls white pen. Yes, I'm collecting Jelly Rolls. I'm a pen addict. I can't help myself, and I'd never really bought Jelly Rolls before, but I'm thinking I'm probably going to start a collection of these things because they work really great in this book. So why not? Let's do a little doodle. Let's take this kind of gold pen. This is one that they don't really sell in sets at all, but I can get these individually, and they are Jelly Roll's gold line of pens. I've got 5 colors. I think there might have been a purple that I missed, but that's okay. Just a quick little drawing. Here we've got some green, and it's got a little bit of this where the pink soaked in, and it's given it a kind of uneven edge here. What do you think, Binky? What should we draw? How about we draw Binky? Let's draw a cat. Let's put some ears on here. Just put a couple of cute little pointed ears because he's always being nosy. We put little furry tufts here. And get the top of the head. And a Binky. Look at me, cat, so that I can see the shape of your face real quick. Nope, he's going to wander off because he doesn't care. That's fine. We'll just draw a little vaguely cat-shaped face then, because he's got a cute little round face. And give him a little bit of that. Little fuzzy bits here around the edges. And he's fun because he has one wonky eye. One that doesn't quite open all the way. So we'll get that. And then we will put his little, we'll probably have to do something else about that, but that's okay. And we'll draw another cute little eye here, which isn't going to be even, but this is really just an experimental book anyway. So it doesn't matter if it's not perfect and beautiful, like all those Instagram photos that nobody likes to release unless they're absolutely perfect. Alrighty then. And let's see, we got a little nose here, dips in a little bit. And then, of course, there's those famous little kitty lips. And there we go. He's often got his tongue sticking out, but we're not going to do that. And we'll draw some nice little bold shoulders here. And some little bean toes, because everybody loves little bean toes. And this is definitely going to be a stylized cat, because no cat is really shaped like this. But again, this is just, you know, a little drawing book. It's not meant for perfection. Maybe for perfection, but not for perfection. He usually has his tail up, so let's do him with the up. And there he is. And now you see this, we have this lovely sunshine today. Sadly, it's not really showing on here, so here we go. Look how sparkly that is. This particular page has already got a little bit of sparkle to it, but that has got some beautiful sparkle. And he's all black, so we'll just, whoops, hello Binky, decided to come back, did you? And make a little avalanche to the side. Hi. Next you're going to be trying to stick your paws in the page. Anyway, this is how it reacts with pen. It's absolutely wonderful. Maybe we should use that white pen, because it is a very nice white pen. Let's do a little quick fly on the side, because he loves flies. Don't you, Binky? You love flies. See, it shows up really nice on that paper. It really does. So anyway, I have saved the very last 2 pages to actually show you what I do with this paper to make all of these other pages in here, just all this other stuff. I've got these absolutely ugly pieces of paper here, and they're technically the back side of contact paper. Yeah, I saved that stuff. It actually makes wonderful palettes, and in this case, wonderful barriers, because I can stick this behind that page, and the next page isn't going to get wet. Now, my water over there is slightly down and rather dirty, but it's already dirty in the colors I'm going to be using, so I'm not going to worry about it. These older, cheaper paints require a little extra wetting, so I have already wet some papers here. Now, the first one, I'm just going to take a solid color and get my nice soft squirrel hair over here. This is not an expensive brush. I came in a set of 6. No, this was only a set of 4, but it was small to large. This was the largest one, and I paid 25 bucks for these. Yeah, maybe 25 bucks sounds like a lot for a brush, but considering I've got at least one brush over there by Black Swan that is a $35 brush all by itself, these are really not expensive. And a little bit in brushes helps a long ways, mostly because you pay more, they'll last longer, usually. Sometimes not, just depending. But anyway, I'm just going to roll this big old brush in here. I'll pick up some paint. Move the camera a little bit so you can see what I'm doing, maybe. Because I've got that. There we go. I think I'm in there now. Anyway, I'm just rolling this brush in this paint water, basically, like it was a hog on a hot day. It is getting soaked. And now we come over here, and I like to start in the center for a page like this, just because it does soak the page and it feathers a bit. So I don't want to go quite all the way in. It's gonna go all the way in for the water anyway, which is why you see it oftentimes staining other pages where the paint has soaked in, soaked up, and soaked through onto other pages. In an effort to avoid that, I'm going to stay just a little bit away from that edge, and then we're just going to start soaking the page. Just soak it all out. And this does, as you can see, my brush is soaked. And it is just soaking up this water and this paint. And it does. It is a lot more like dyeing the page than it is painting it. Because you're really not going to get a good picture on these. I tried at one point, somewhere back towards the beginning, I think, and I just tried something simple like a couple of spots for some flowers and a little bit of vining, and it's not great. You might be able to figure out what on earth it is, but it's not great. And I should have thought of that earlier and marked the page, because it's back there somewhere. It's one of the green pages. I thought it was just after the cat. But anyway, you can, oh, I think I just found it. Yeah, where I attempted to do a vine and some flowers, and as you can see, there is no definition, none whatsoever. So, not the best idea I tried on this, but if I was going for a tie-dye effect, swirls, expecting the color to kind of bleed into each other, which I'll show you next after we finish soaking this page, because I could only really do 2 of these at a time, which is why I saved the last 2 just for you guys, so that you could see the process that I'm using to colorize these pages. And when I'm done, this will be devoted entirely to pins. Probably mostly the Gelly pins, because I am absolutely amazed at their color ranges. There is a beautiful European artist that I have followed for years who has recently been using these and putting a lot of her work online too. I think her name is, and I'll probably say it wrong, so if she actually sees this, my apologies, Olna, or Ola? Is it Ola? Binky, don't be making noise back there. I'm not sure what he's into, but I may have to stop him in a second. Stop it. Get. Ah, Black Cat. He does make my life interesting. He had a bag full of something over there, no telling. Probably some art supply that I've gotten for a project that I haven't done yet. Got plenty of those. In fact, one of the reasons I hadn't done anything in the studio in 8 months is because I got to a point I was recording something. It's not finished, sadly. It's still sitting around here somewhere. But I actually filmed the part of it where I was painting up to the point where I stopped. And when I stopped, I just kind of looked around my studio and I looked at what I was doing and I said, I don't want to do this. And it's an awful feeling when you just look at what you're doing and you know it's things you enjoy doing and just don't want to do it. So I said, okay, let's look at this objectively. Why don't I want to do it? What is it that is making it where this is not what I want to do? Was it the picture? No, the picture was turning out great. So what was it? And I realized that my studio was so cluttered that it looked like a room from a Hoarders episode. So I've spent a while cleaning this up, or at least trying to. I can only do so much with boxes and boxes of picture frames, which mostly meant that I spent a lot of time taking some of my beautiful artwork from the drawers where they're stored and trying to frame them up. I have an art gallery wall just for that. Now, here's a wet page. It is a very wet page. You went to a wet t-shirt contest and you're still wringing the water out of it t-shirt type thing. So I have another piece of this contact paper backing, and it was apparently not quite big enough, so I just taped it together. No big deal, it works. And I'm going to take the shiny side, insert it into the spinal crack here, and very gently turn the page, peel it up. Ta-da! Now that beautiful dark raspberry color, which I was quite thrilled with when I made it, is still slightly on this. But that's okay, because I'll put it on the back of this and maybe a few dots of it will show up. but it's not going to matter that much. Now, to get the palette that Mr. Binky was trying to spill over there, I have got about 3 to 4 different colors, 4 colors that I've got all pre-wetted here, because this stuff, it's old, it's cheap, and one of the biggest problems with cheap paints is that they do not re-wet well. They do not reactivate quickly. Like if I were to take one of my Daniel Smiths or Winsor Newton or these adorable little paint stones from Beam, I really do love these. I want to use more of them, but I got to clear some of these other projects first. Those things, you wet them and you just count to 2 and they are ready. Ready to go, ready to give you bold, brilliant colors. Old paints, not so much. I started soaking these little pots before I even had everything set up for this video. So, let's do something different here. I said this was great for tie-dyeing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start in the center of the page, and I'm going to work my way out. And I want to do it with bright colors because I like the way it looks. It kind of reminds me of like when you see lights at night, especially like firefly lamps. Well, not firefly lamps, but you know, the bug zapper lights, or even just a light bulb in the dark. I like the effect. So we're going to start in the center, and I'm just going to make a circle. And I've got way more water here than I need because what I've got there is enough probably to soak the whole page in one color, but that's not what I'm doing. So I've got this bit of bright lime green, and I'm going to go to the next lightest color, which I have next to it, because the light is only bright in the center of the bulb. So I'm going to go around it, and it overlaps a little bit, which is good because we want them to fade into each other, or at least I do. Do whatever you want. And it's a lot more green than the other one is, so I'm going to take some more of that bright green. And yeah, the page is soaked, but I want to go around those edges and sort of smooth that difference into each other. Rinse my brush just a little bit because now I want to go out into a sort of a bright blue teal. And I don't have proper names for these because these were experimental colorings that I created just to see how mixing different colors worked. Now, if anybody would like to see something like that, I do still have some older tube paints here, or I could just go get some cheap paints. They're everywhere. Cheap paint is everywhere. And I could actually demonstrate this. And it was a fun process. I learned a lot from it. I learned a lot about getting different things from greens and purples in particular. Maybe I could do one with orange. That might be interesting, just to see how the yellow and reds work together. And here I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to go back to the color before and just run it around that edge to bring out that color and smooth out the transition. Smooth out that transition. Because we don't want it to be obvious where one color starts and the other ends. That kind of destroys the whole point. Now for that last color, I've got a nice, basically blue. I obviously didn't add much green to it at all because it is still almost cobalt. At least I think that's what the color is, because I have also lost the notes for this. I've had it sitting around doing nothing for a while because obviously they don't react as well as my good paint, so why should I use these when I could use good paint? And then I found this, and it finally had a purpose. In fact, I still have so much older, cheaper paint, and this is so much fun, that I will probably end up getting another one of these little books so that I can keep playing with them and using up the older paint. Because let's face it, it's not something you want to do if it's not fun. Art should be fun. all those stuffy old majors and things. And you look at art history, and I have spent quite a bit of time this year wasting my time just listening to art history, or more accurately, the history behind the arts. You want to talk about soap opera dramas. Wow. I never imagined that somebody making art would have so much drama in their lives. That's great. But anyway, there we go. And now to spend a lot of time waiting. I usually let these things sit for an entire day. Sometimes an entire 24 hours if I just don't get back to it in that time. And this is why I can only do 2. Because if I tried to do more than 2 of these at a time, it probably just wouldn't turn out real good, because I would end up with a book that would probably mold. Granted, I have air conditioning in this house, so it's not as bad as being in places where there's no air conditioning and everything is subject to the humidity from outside. But I still don't think it would be a good idea to have a giant wet book sitting around, because that would take too long to dry. So anyway, this is the Lokta book and what I have been doing with it and what I plan to do with it. And I hope that you have enjoyed this little follow-up on my little book. I don't really have a whole lot more to say about it, other than I am surprisingly pleased with it. Maybe not for the purposes that I actually thought I would use it for in the beginning, but I am definitely having fun with it. And I've learned a lot about it. I've learned a lot about the paper. I've learned a lot about the process of working with it. And I'm just going to quickly tell you, because I actually printed out a 3-page spread on this paper, most of which is irrelevant and talks about cotton industries, women's involvement, conservation areas, and the paper-making process itself, which is pretty basic to paper-making processes of all kinds. However, I thought the modern uses were kind of interesting, just because, this is modern times, and when I first got this book, I said, what am I supposed to do with this? So the traditional uses for Lokta paper were largely restricted to government documents and religious text. Interesting, and today this paper is widespread. It's used for prayer flags, which I can see, it's actually surprisingly durable, book bindings, which I thought was interesting, but I'll admit, I think the outer cover of this is done with it, and it is quite satisfying to touch. Restaurant menus. I thought that was kind of interesting. I'm sure it provides an interesting texture to the menu. Wallpaper. Yeah, I could see that. Again, the texture. Wrapping paper. Ooh, I can see the potential there, because this stuff, it's soft. It feels kind of like paper napkin, but it is definitely stronger than a paper napkin. And I believe I saw somewhere on here that this was even, oh yeah, that's further down the list. So wrapping paper, and it retains the potency of incense. So I thought that was interesting. So wrapping paper to retain the potency of incense. I'm guessing this probably doesn't breathe a lot, but it feels like it should, because it's very cloth-like in its texture. Spices and medicine. I'm not sure what they mean by that. Are they packaging the medicine, or is it actually medicinal, the stuff it's made from? Packaging, which I can see, again, it's quite durable. Origami. This I'm really curious about, because this stuff doesn't bend and hold its shape like regular pulp paper. So I'm not sure how this would be used for origami. That's an interesting thought. And here's one that really caught my attention. Even dresses. Dresses? I mean, this stuff is stiff. I mean, it's not like cardboard, but it's a lot stiffer than anything I would want to wear. Granted, I could see in the 80s this would be great for keeping up your shoulder pads. You could have some real stiff shoulders with this stuff. And maybe there's a process they use to soften it even more, because it is soft. I could see this being an interesting thing. I'm not sure I would want it next to my skin. It might be slightly abrasive. I mean, it's soft, but it's not like cotton. It could probably be comparable to linen or felt, but it's a little bit stiffer than most. Well, no, I suppose it's very feltish, but it's thinner than felt. Anyway, I've rambled on long enough, and you've probably got things that you want to go watch now. So this was the Nepalese lokta paper book and what I plan to do with it. I hope you've enjoyed it, enjoyed my rambling on. Please feel free to comment all you like. And that's it for now. Bye-bye.